Welcome to the Board of Selectmen's meeting. Thank you for attending. October 30th, 2017. If you could please, I'd like to welcome to the microphone Jim Pazerski, please. And Jim is a local scout leader, and I think he wants to introduce a couple people that are going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I'd like to introduce Timmy and Charlie Pazerski. They're with Boy Scout Troop 41 in Abington. So I'd ask you all to please stand while we start the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
As is norm, we've got a couple announcements to read. Oh, we have moments on first. I apologize. I'd like to have a moment of silence for Jim Walensky. John served the town of Abington as a member of the Board of Assessors for 20 years, 1975 to 1995. John was a lifelong resident of Abington and served proudly in Vietnam. He's a very good baseball and softball player and an avid golfer. John leaves behind his children, grandchildren, and siblings. John will be deeply missed by his loving family and many friends. Please have a moment of silence for John. Thank you. Tom, you have an announcement?
Sure. Monday, November 13, 2017, from 7 to 8 p.m., interview help workshop. Want to learn how to ace that job interview? Join us at the Abington Public Library at 7 p.m. on Monday, November 13th for interview help. The interview workshop will prepare you for a job interview, from what to expect for questions to the questions you should ask to see if the job is a good fit. Other questions from participants will be answered. No registration is required. For questions regarding this program, please call 781-982-2139.
Thank you. Alex?
Yes, November 11th, 7 to 11 p.m. at the Abington Knights of Columbus is the 5th annual John Favor Scholarship Night. $20 at the door. There will be food, music, raffles, and silent auction. Dennis Graham and his mom, Mary, have been running this event since the beginning, and they give out scholarships to boys and girls from Abington. They'll also be making a donation in John's memory to the Annie's Kindness Blanket campaign. All money raised goes to help out in this great town. John, for those of you who don't know, John passed away 25 years ago in a car accident at 15 years old. So he was very close to the Graham family, and them and John's parents put this on every year. So hopefully you can make it. I've been there every year. It's a great time, and it's only $20 at the door, and it's really for a good cause. November 11th, 7th to 11. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a press release from the police chief. It's a very lengthy press release. We read it every year. Andy Burbine's going to touch upon some of the things in there real quick.
Yes. Always okay. Let's see. In the interest of making the upcoming Halloween holiday a safe and enjoyable event, this is from the chief. I am respectfully requesting that you read this information to the public at the next Board of Selectmen's meeting. The Abington Police Department has announced that hours for trick-or-treat in the town of Abington on Halloween are from 4 p.m. until 8 p.m. The Abington Police Department encourages residents to shut off outside lights after 8 p.m. to reinforce the hours that were established with safety in mind. Parents should also make sure that their children are aware of the candy deadline in advance. All parents should have a discussion with their children about respecting other people's property and, most importantly, adhering to the following safety tips. Adults should accompany children. Older children should trick-or-treat in a group of at least 3 or more. Parents should clearly know the trick-or-treat route that the children will be taking. Children should only trick-or-treat in familiar and well-lit neighborhoods. Children should wear costumes that are light-colored or garbed with reflectors. Children should carry flashlights with new batteries or glow sticks. Children should not carry hard plastic or wood props such as daggers or swords. Adults and children should watch for traffic at all times, even on side streets. Remember that Halloween is on a Tuesday night this year. Motorists should drive well below the speed limit up to an hour before and after the posted trick-or-treat hours. Trick-or-treaters should go to all the houses on one side of the street before they cross the street to the houses on the other side. Do not zigzag back and forth. Trick-or-treaters should stay on the sidewalks, driveways, and walkways to avoid ruts on holes on the lawn. Trick-or-treaters should not accept unwrapped or unpackaged candy. Parents should inspect all candy before anything is eaten. Parents should also be aware that the Abington Police Department has requested that Abington store owners not sell any of the following products to children under the age of 18 from October 28th until November 1st: spray paint, eggs, soap, shaving cream, and toilet paper. Parents are requested to notify the Abington Police Department at 878-3232 if they observe any local stores violating this request.
Thank you, Mr. Berline.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have two. Yard waste, just in time, I guess. Leaves, grass, and twigs will be picked up at curbside on your regular trash day, starting the week of November 13th. They must be out by 7 a.m. 7 a.m., that's right, Bob. Yard waste will be collected in either paper bags or trash barrels weighing no more than 50 pounds. Please remember, no plastic bags. And the other thing I'd like to mention is the Scouts are collecting food for the food pantry. They'll be picking it up this Saturday. Please put your bags out early, around 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock in the morning, so we can collect food for the food pantry this week for the Boy Scouts. Thank you.
One last announcement, this Sunday, November 5th, batting for Adrian softball tournament, sorry, and Family Fun Day fundraiser, sponsored by the fire department, local. Opening ceremony 8:30, games begin 9, kids' activities from 9 to 2. Lots of kids' activities, jumpy houses, photo booth, DJ, lots of raffle prizes. So if you're able to help and attend, that would be a good event at Beaverbrook, behind Beaverbrook, this Sunday, November 5th. Our first order of business is we have a joint appointment. Per the town charter, the appointment to fill, we have 2 vacancies on the Board of Health, and those vacancies are filled by our board and the remaining members of the Board of Health. We have, from the Board of Health, we have Linda Dickey, and we have Terry Mays. Welcome. Thank you. Thank you very much. They don't have a quorum, so they can't even call their meeting to order, so we've got to get them some help. We have 3 names, I believe, in the running. We have Mr. Timothy Chapin, Jen Collins, and Bob Wing. Are any of them present here tonight? Oh, they're all present. Excellent. In the order, so we'd like to bring them in order up to the microphone, and we can ask them questions, or you can just start by stating the reason you're interested in the Board of Health, experience you may have, or anything that might give you a leg up on the competition, I should say. So come on up, Tim, please. Your name and address, please.
Tim Chapin, 353 Center Ave.
Welcome.
Welcome. My only motivation is to help out the town. I've been trying to come in, help out any way I could over the past few months. I saw the vacancies, so I sent my application in. I worked in restaurants for about 15 years prior, up to the position of general manager, so implementation of food safety procedures and sanitation programs, I did all that. I currently work for a company out of Weymouth. We make, sell, and deliver compound cleaning chemicals. We work with factories to consult them on standard operating procedures for their cleaning programs and sanitation.
Thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions for Tim?
You understand that this is just to fill a vacancy until the next election?
I understand.
Yeah. Would you plan on running for the position, do you think, in April? Or?
Depending on how I like it, sure. I do want to be involved, and it's not. I don't think it would be a short-term thing. So
Okay.
I would intend to. Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions from our board? Members of the Board of Health, any questions? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Next, Jennifer Collins, if you'd like to come up to the microphone, Jennifer, and just give your address, please, and a little bit of your background. Thank you, welcome.
Hi, thank you. My name is Jennifer Collins. My address is 262 Adams Street in Abington, obviously. I grew up in town. My maiden name is Oriola. My family's been here a long time. But I'm interested in the Board of Health because I've been involved in local politics for, while I was here in town. I went to high school here, and then after college moved back and got involved in the campaign to elect Kathy Tian. Through that was connected and joined the Finance Committee in Abington, which I served on for 2 years. And then subsequent to that, I worked at the State House. So I'm familiar with both historical issues in Abington, as well as state regulations. I've done work with the Department of Health in the Commonwealth, so I'm very familiar with rules and regulations. And I really think the Board of Health is in a unique position to really make an impact on the lives and the health of the residents of Abington. And I'd really kind of like to pick up where I left off. I left town for 10 years and now I'm back, and just really kind of want to get involved and do my civic duty.
Thank you, Jennifer. Any questions of the Board of Health? Want to ask, go first? Do you have any questions? You guys all set?
Same question that I asked
Yes.
Mr. Chapin. Would you
I-
understand that this is just for,
Yes.
to fill the position until April? Would you plan on running for
I
the
would.
position? You would, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Lastly, oh, that one's not. Bob Wayne. Wait. Wow. Half of those words to come out of my mouth.
Bob Wink, 352 Adams Street. I've been in the food business since my mother had me in the kitchen at 14 years old. I own a local business here in town, so I'm very well versed in food safety, general management, and such. I'd like to get involved, back involved in town again, and I'd like to get on the Board of Health because of the ongoing issues we have. I'd like to see, I think the Board of Health has taken a very proactive approach as far as the recycling program and stuff, and I'd like to see that expanded. I'd like to see maybe some more issues with health issues, health preventative issues for the local residents, pushing those along. And also, you know, with the health agent retiring, Sharon's done a phenomenal job, and I'd like to see us move forward along with that same caliber, if we could. The health agent is there to help, from my point of view, help businesses, educate us, because she's on the cusp of everything. We're not. We're trying to run our businesses day to day. So I see her, or that person, as a educational aspect for us. And so I'd like to be involved with that.
Thank you, Bob.
That's it.
Questions from the board?
Same, yeah,
Same.
no problem, Andy. I
You would
don't
plan
see
to-
this as a short term. I'm looking long term.
Great, thanks, Bob.
Thank you.
I have one question, Bob, actually. Bob, I have one question. Sorry. I'm asking you because it's a different situation. Do you think any conflict being a business owner in town, owner of a restaurant in town?
No, I don't, and I think what the board has done in the past with members of the board who actually own businesses is we have a relationship with Rockland, Whitman, surrounding towns where that health agent would come in so that there's no conflict.
Excellent.
So I'd have no issue with that.
Perfect. All right, thank you. All right, so I guess the way this is gonna work, if it's agreeable to everyone, is we'll just put I'll open up for nominations, and I guess the first person to get 4 votes, does that sound right? Would, between 5 and 2 is 7, if that, or that.
Yeah, I need 4 votes.
So I will open up the nominations. I'll take a name.
I nominate Jennifer Collins.
We have a motion and a second for Jennifer Collins. We'll just do a, right down the line. Let's start with
So you're gonna do
Tom.
them one at a time, is
Yeah,
that?
is that
That's fine.
agreeable? So the first person that's gonna get 4 votes will be, the 2 people get 4 votes first.
for John.
All right, let me go down the line, please. Tom?
Yes.
Tom?
Yep.
I mean, for Jen, okay? 1?
No.
No.
You're a yes.
I'm a yes.
I'm gonna vote no.
I'm gonna vote yes.
So that's 4 and 3. So congratulations, Jen Collins. I'll open the floor to another name.
Nominate Tim Chapin.
Tim Chapin. We have a second.
I'll second that.
Motion's made and second. We'll go right down. Let's start at this end just to make it even funner. Tim Chapin.
No.
I'll vote yes.
No?
Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
So was that 4?
Moving forward.
That was 4? Okay. All right, and that's it. I guess congratulations to Jen Collins and Tim Chapin. Thank you, ladies. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Keep up the good work. Thank you. You have a full board now.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone that applied for that position. Appreciate it. I guess now, 6:45, well, we're actually almost on time. We're gonna have a presentation. My understanding, it's a 15 or 20-minute slideshow, and then we're gonna open it up to questions from the audience. If we could please have, I believe Donald Daly is the one who is going to start the show. Welcome, Donald, from the Mass DOT. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and through you to the members of the board. My name is Donnie Daly. I am the Government Affairs Liaison for the Mass DOT Highway Division, and we're here to give a presentation on the Route 18 Weymouth Abington widening project. And just let me introduce members of the team, and they'll raise their hands. Chris Evasius is the Assistant Area Construction Engineer for Mass DOT. Tom Aiken is the Area Construction Engineer. Ed Michella is the Resident Engineer. We have Ryan Colahan, who's the Assistant Director of Commuter Rail for the MBTA. As you folks are aware, there's a bridge that's being replaced, and this from a public involvement firm is Kate Barrett and Samantha Sudo. I don't know if Sam's here. On any large project, as part of the bidding process, we'll put in an item for a public involvement firm, as we would do on the Fall River, Longfellow, so on and so forth, to support, the civic engagement and public outreach. We have from design consultants, Ali Tali from HNTB, Brian Ackley from Tetra Tech, and we have Pablo Calderon, who's will assist me with the public outreach and the civic engagement as well. We're joined by Senator John Keenan, Representative Jeff Deal, and we're just, with the chairman, to echo the chairman's comments, we're going to go through the PowerPoint presentation. Kate Barrett's going to start it off, and then Chris McCrae, who is with the Gioso, the contractor, and then we'll be more than happy to answer any questions. And I'd just like to say a big thanks to Rick and Dory, because they were very, very, very helpful and in support of getting this, what we needed to get this event underway. So thank you, Rick. Thank you, Dory. I appreciate it. So this is Kate Barrett from Regina Villa.
So welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming. We're going to run through a quick presentation that's going to give you an overview about the project, the construction plans, and I'm going to start off just the overview, talk a little bit about traffic impacts and mitigation, and then be sure that you have the information, you know how to reach us if you have questions or concerns. As you know, it's a MassDOT project, and back in September, MassDOT awarded the contract to Gioso DNR, which is a joint venture. And as Donnie said, the firm I work for, Regina Villa Associates, is assisting Gioso DNR and MassDOT with public outreach. So you're probably all familiar, because this project has been around for a while. The corridor goes from about Middle and West Street south to Route 139 in Abington. It's about a 4.2 mile, 4.3 mile corridor, and we all know it's a busy one. The schedule is the contractor, they've already started some work to prepare for construction, doing surveying, starting to schedule and coordinate with the utility companies for relocations. You'll start seeing, they'll be out starting to install signage next week. And then after they start the prep work, the roadway widening, the way it's sequenced is they're not going to be going from north-south continuously. It's going to, where they go is going to depend on where they've been able to move utilities. So they'll be jumping around a little bit. So, but the full time frame is from 2018 to 2021 for the roadway widening. Then they'll be working on the Route 18 bridge replacement over the T commuter rail, and then doing final pavement and restoration. There is an incentive and disincentive clause for the contract for completion. As you know, it's the roadway basically goes back and forth between 1 and 2 lanes. It's high volume, 39,700 cars a day, high crash rate, limited bicycle accommodations, and intermittent sidewalks. The bridge over the commuter rail is structurally deficient. It has a severe angle that it crosses the roadway. There's no vehicle railing, and there's a sidewalk only on one side. So what this project is going to do is widen continuously from Middle and West Street down to 139 to 2 lanes in each direction. There'll be a continuous sidewalk and on both sides, and a shoulder and shared bike lane on both sides of the roadway. There'll be a full intersection reconstruction on Pond Street and Route 58, and then also at Shea Memorial Drive. And there'll be additional, some additional upgrades to intersections that have previously been worked on, Route 139, Pond Street and Pleasant Street up to the north, Columbian Street, Park Avenue, and Middle Street and West Street. And there's also going to be a new emergency signal that will be constructed at the fire station here in Abington. Again, as we said, the replacement of the bridge over the commuter rail. A big part of the project is mitigating impacts to wetlands, stormwater management enhancements, utility relocations, as we mentioned, and also obviously a very keen interest in managing traffic so we can minimize impacts to the traveling public in the neighborhoods. The benefits are relieving congestion and improving traffic flow. We want to, it's going to reduce cut-through traffic on local streets because the flow will be improved. Intersections there'll be increase in intersection safety and improving bicycle and pedestrian accommodations and accessibility for ADA. Replacing the functionally obsolete bridge, and then also because this is all moving, it's going to move traffic in a better way, supporting the economic development in the area. This is the cross section. 5'6" sidewalks on either side, a shared shoulder and bike lane, 5 feet wide, and then 4 11'6" vehicle lanes, 2 in each direction. Pond Street and Route 58 intersection, there's going to be some turning lanes added and new signals at Route 58 here and Trotter Road. The shoulders, again, adding the 5-foot shoulders. And then at Shea Memorial Drive, the intersection would be a new signal, and then again, the cross-section roadway improvements there. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Chris McCray, and he's going to walk you through the bridge construction.
Thank you. Hi, Chris McCray, PGOSO Construction, accelerated bridge construction. Essentially, that's building the bridge in the proximity of the new bridge to facilitate swapping over the new bridge construction installation in a very fast manner. There's going to be 3 roadway closures of Route 18 that we'll talk about in the upcoming slides. The first of which, we're going to dismantle the eastern face of the bridge. That has a lot of benefits. It allows us to build the permanent deck very close to where it's going to lay in its permanent location. We'll be able to utilize a lot of the foundations, permanent foundations, in close proximity to the old bridge. Be less temporary foundations, and by keeping this deck close to the final location, it's a reduction in wetland disturbance and a smoother flow of traffic when the traffic shares the use of that permanent deck while it's in its temporary location. After that beam is removed, we're going to build the final deck in a temporary location up against the bridge. Right, excuse me. In this proximity there'll be permanent foundations, and off to the east side will be built on temporary foundations and shores. When this deck is completed, we're going to temporarily build the roadway to match the grade of the new deck and divert traffic off of the old bridge, which will allow us to dismantle the remaining portion of the bridge, place new foundation, new permanent foundations on the west side, preparing for the bridge slide. Weekend closures will be closed at the bridge. Traffic will be diverted at Route 58, Pond Street, and sent around to Pond and Pleasant. There's some slides showing the detour. The detour's up ahead. But the slide will push the bridge westerly to match the existing location. And it's done in two steps. In the project is built a assurance that all the equipment that's brought in from all parts of the country are working efficiently. It's a small prototype move, just a fraction of the permanent move. The bridge is jacked up, it's slid over, it's returned back to where it was originally built, and traffic is restored with the same traffic pattern as was before. The consecutive week, assuring that everything's functioning properly as it will be, and any bugs in the system are worked out. We're going to do the complete move to the west, sliding the bridge into its permanent location. After the bridge is in its permanent location, there's some utilities that are built along the side of the bridge. There's a water main on the east side and telecommunication conduits on the west side that need to be tied into the groundwork to complete their runs. So when the bridge is dropped into its final location, those utilities will be connected. In previous slide, you see there was a widening to facilitate traffic on the temporary location. Those widenings will be removed and completely cleaned up and dismantled for the final construction of the bridge. Traffic impacts for the bridge and in Abington, the length of the whole project, we're going to maintain one lane of traffic in each direction. Most of the work is to the sides, so one side or the other will be working. Traffic will be flowing on the other side with one lane in each direction. There'll be no detours required for most of the road work, just the three Route 18 closures that I described associated with the bridge construction and installation. Work hours are 7 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. typically. There may be reason to schedule night work for some complicated procedures, but nothing scheduled right now. That will all be coordinated with Mass DOT and the local cities. Okay, again, the 3 weekend closures associated with constructing the bridge. Next year, spring, summer, we're going to close it down to basically, essentially reduce the size of the existing bridge so we can build this new structure in close proximity to where it's finally going to be set. And then weekend 2 or 3, they're consecutive weekends. We're looking at spring 2019 to, like I described before, first make sure everything's in accordance to the way it's supposed to be, and then the final push. It's a 52-foot push, sliding the entire bridge 360 feet long into its final location. Those are the three closures. Not only is vehicular traffic prohibited from crossing the bridge while these moves are in place, no pedestrians, no bicycles. The train will not be functioning either. There'll be temporary spans over the train tracks prohibiting trains from going through, plus with the movement of a 300-ton bridge over their tracks. There'll be no MBTA trains there. The train passengers will be encouraged to use some of the other train corridors that we can talk about in the next upcoming slides, depending on where you live. But there will be busing provided also for people that still need to use the local stations originally. This is a map of the Pond Street detour that I described. This is Route 58 right here. Route 18 coming from Abington. They'll be detoured to the west, coming right here, Pond and Pleasant Street. I'm sorry, Pond and Pleasant Street, and continuing on Route 18 to the north, and coming from the north, it'll be the same the other way. Residents and businesses in this area to the bridge will be kept open at all times throughout the length of the project, and even through the 3 weekend outages. People going to those local facilities will still be allowed to do so, just not to cross the bridge. There'll be police to protect people from trying to cross over the bridge. And Kate, there's more information.
Yeah, so as Chris said, if you're a public transit rider, we want you to stay a public transit rider, so we don't want to drive more traffic onto the roadways in Route 3. So this slide, and by the way, this PowerPoint will be posted on the website, so you have access to these maps. They're a little bit easier to see. We'll do that in the next day or two after the meeting, as well as Samantha is taking notes and will be posting a meeting summary. But this map does show approximate distances between the commuter rail line here and crossing over to pick up the Lakeville Middleborough line. So that gives you an idea of how much travel time you need to leave to hop over and use a different commuter rail line. The contractor's going to be putting out signs in advance, plenty of advance notice on the roadway to try and drive the commuters who are driving to these existing stations here and let them know that they should be shifting over to the Lakeville Middleborough line. So we will be staying in touch on that. You should have received a handout. It gives information on how to sign up for the email address. If you go to the website, which is this one right here, Route 18 Weymouth Abington, there is a feature where you can sign up. That's what the page looks like to sign up. If you sign up, you'll receive all of our traffic advisories and construction updates. We do our best to let you know 2 weeks in advance before anything happens, when it's feasible, so you have time to plan ahead. The email address, Route 18 improvements at state.ma.us, is where you can reach us if you have questions or concerns, you need some help. Just email us there, and we have that particular address because there are a number of different people who check that address, so we have good coverage, and somebody can be available to you. But don't use that as an emergency contact, just so you know. If you signed in, we will go ahead and add you to the email list. So if you haven't signed up and you want to have us do it for you, on your way out, if you could add your email address, make sure it's legible. Otherwise, you can go to the website, as I said, and sign yourself up. And with that, I think we're ready for questions.
Thanks for having us. I don't normally have an opening statement, but tonight I think there's two things that are of importance. As I'm sitting here in Abington, I'm thinking to myself, I'm not even in my district. That's because you're District 5. So I just want the selectmen and the citizens to know that we are in contact with District 5, MassDOT, as this whole project gets built. They know what we're doing. We're working with them when appropriate. So there'll be no surprises in 2023 when someone says, well, why'd you let those guys build it that way? That's not gonna happen. So when it comes to roadway takings or any changes that may be required for any properties, curb cuts, whatever, District 5 is gonna be involved with District 6. We are District 6 out of Boston, but we have some contacts, and they've already been to some of our meetings, and we're gonna keep that up through the years on this project. The other thing, I think it's gonna come up, is it working, or? Okay, good. It'll probably come up, and I figure I'll address it right now. PGOso and Sons owns a parcel of land in Abington, which they use for lawful purposes as permitted by the town or the local conservation agents or any other governing body. That piece of land and the use of that land is completely independent from this contract. This contract was given to PGOso under federal regulations and state regulations that they were the lowest qualified bidder. It has nothing to do with any use or non-use of that piece of property. I know that Gioso's going through with the town. I don't even know exactly where they are, but I know they're working with District 5 on curb cuts. I think it's best if I explain that at first. Whether or not Gioso uses that piece of land, this contract goes forward, and just as if a contractor had a piece of land in Weymouth, it's the same thing for us. This contract goes forward, and it's Gioso's responsibility to make sure that they go by all laws, regulations, whatever they need to go by to use that land. So I figured it might be helpful if I just address that right off the bat, because I've seen some articles and everything. I think it'd be a good idea. So with that, are there any other questions or any questions?
The way I'd like this to work, if we could, is I'm gonna have Vice Chairman Bob come out with a microphone. That way you don't pick it up, you know, come up with a microphone. Well, the microphone, people, the important thing is the people watching this on TV tonight or tomorrow night will be able to hear the questions, because there's usually gonna be a lot of great questions. So what we're gonna do is take this microphone, and we did this last week and it worked out excellent. And so anyone who has a question, raise your hand and Bob will come and find you.
Could I ask one quick question, though, Mr. Chairman, first? And this was a question that was actually asked by Mr. Shea last week to me, and others have also asked it. It's more of a design question, more so than specifically a question, a construction question, but having to do with 139. Is this going to be wide enough at our 139 intersection to be able to have left turn signals to be able to provide enough room for traffic, for appropriate traffic flow? Because right now it's a problem, and is this going to become more of a problem, or is this going to alleviate a problem that exists right now, or is this a question that you're able to answer?
We have the right people, so I was just gonna
Okay,
let you finish.
thank
And Donnie just asked me if we should have Brian up here, and I said, no, we'll be all set. And then we found out we should. So Brian, would you mind, some of these questions may be, obviously, and I know you know this isn't a design hearing or anything, but we do need to
No.
answer these questions,
Okay.
and it's the right thing to do. So
And
if
I
Brian will answer some of these questions. He's with the designer, so some of these specific questions he's best to answer.
And if I could say, and I'd say, Joe, or if anybody else has a more articulate way of asking that question, please feel free to
I like one of
compound that if you get the whole thing out of the way right
the,
now.
off of 139 heading towards 18, can we take a left onto 18?
Be a left-hand.
Right, and again, gentleman here said to amend that question even, but if that whole question can be dealt with right now instead of piecemeal, that would be helpful.
This is a concern I've had for many years, including, I raised it before at a previous meetings with Mass Highway in 2013. Right now, if you're trying to take a left-hand turn off on 139, either going north onto Route 18, or you're trying to take a left-hand turn going west and from North Abington, you're taking your life in your hands. The only way you can do it, especially during heavy traffic periods, is you inch out into the intersection and basically right into the yellow light turns for the traffic coming the other way and then go across. So what that means is many times you're doing it during a red light. It's the only way you can get across doing it that way. I was at, going west on 139 a few months ago, and I sat there through three light changes before I could take a left-hand turn to go south. And but the person before me, decided not to wait on the third turn. He went for a red light, and it happens on a continuous basis. And with the traffic continuing to increase, and with the impacts coming from an increased volume at Southfield, we're waiting for a disaster. We have access there on a frequent basis, and it's going to get worse. I believe, and I've heard from people who I think had good knowledge, this was supposed to happen years ago, and it did not happen. So, there may be other improvements needed there, but definitely left-hand turn signals on 139 to both sides. Thank you.
There were a number of intersections that were rebuilt. I think they were completed in 2008. As part of this project, we looked at those intersections again, and this is one of those intersections. We did what's called a road safety audit. And in that process, the police chiefs and the MassDOT District 5 and the designer got together and walked the site. And we looked at site distance and driveway operation and how the intersections operate. That intersection was looked at. It was studied. It's included in what's called a functional design report. And so there are modifications to it, not geometric modifications, but changes to pavement markings and the timing and the phasing of the signal. So the operation of that signal is going to change. It's the timing is adjusted to account for volume changes in all of the approaches.
Does that mean there's going to be left-hand turn signals?
Yes, some signal indications are being changed, so that's part of the project. I'm not the traffic engineer that did that design, but I don't know off the top of my head what those changes are.
I think his question is there going to be a left green arrow going in each direction?
Right,
like
and
there is on 123 and 18.
Right, we don't have plans here. I can't show it, and off the top of my head, I don't know if each approach is going to have a left turn arrow. But I do know that the phasing is going to be changed to allow left.
Phasing's not going to work. There needs to be a left green arrow.
Well, a phase does allow those turns to be made in advance of the through traffic.
Excuse me. As Alex just said, we have left-hand turn signals on 123 and 18 where the traffic is substantially less than is on 139 and 18. I request the Abington Board of Selectmen make a motion. We're demanding that the state proceed on this. Thank you.
How about this? Let's try this first, before we demand anything. We'll get the plans with the exact timings and the arrows, or lack thereof, whatever they are, and I'll send them to Donnie. Tomorrow morning, Donnie will have them, because he's our government affairs, so that's the best way to do it, and then he can distribute them as the town likes and is appropriate, and then the conversation, this isn't the end of the conversation. Now, that the plans are the plans, the contract is the contract, but that doesn't mean we turn a blind eye to our question, so it's both. So I'll get those to Donnie, Tom will get them to Donnie tomorrow morning, and then Donnie will distribute them, and then Donnie will herald that conversation, and we can see where we go from there.
I'm just very skeptical because I don't
I
know
get that.
how anybody could have done a study of that intersection and not come to the conclusion you need a left-hand turn.
I understand your concern, and I get it, but right now,
All right,
we'll
thank
get the
you.
plans, and we'll look at it and
So
see.
the plans may call for that, you just don't know at this moment.
Yeah,
Is that
I
what you're
just don't.
saying?
That's
correct.
Okay, that's correct.
And
We
I
have
guess,
13 intersections, and sometimes it's hard to memorize
Go to
all of
the
them.
hearing
And
without
we
plans?
try not to bring huge plots of plans, because we get mired down in somebody's one concern, and then everyone's watching it, so.
So I
Have
guess
table.
I guess the follow-up question would be if the plans don't include a left-hand turn, is that something you would rule out totally, or is it something that we can talk about?
If they don't, and the town really wants it, that'll be something Donnie will run to ground to with our design group. As you know, when it comes to the design of these facilities, there's all rules and regulations and warrants that Donnie will be a great person to go through our design group and at least give you the whys and the wheres.
Because they
But-
were able to do it down the end of this street.
Yeah, it's,
They built a new high school, they
Yeah.
put it in, no problem, so it's hopefully something we
I
can
will
work towards.
restate my request.
It would be hard to believe that if 123 and 18 met the criteria for left-hand turn signals and Glenowitz Way did, then it's hard to believe that 139 and 18 doesn't already meet that. But if I guess we'll have to trust that it does, and if not, we'll address that in the weeks to come.
I'd like to restate my motion. After the review, the Board of Selectmen make a motion that after the review, if the review does not include those, that will be demanded by the Board of Selectmen. And make it now, so we don't lose track of it.
I think, and I certainly, I'm a guest in your town, but if we just get those plans to you, we'll have the conversation. I don't think, certainly you guys can do whatever you want, but I don't think demands need to be made. We can talk, things can be changed, so let's just find out. And there's plenty of time. This isn't gonna happen next week. So we're gonna get those, Donnie's gonna have them tomorrow morning. You can see what's going on there, and we can work, and Donnie can work through the organization to find out the wheres and exactly what's gonna be there and what you'd like to see. Towns do have a lot of weight when they have requests, especially when it's down here away from the interstates. So that's all I'm proposing, is just let's get it all, make sure we know what we're talking about.
Hi, Rick Collins, 74 Orange Street. I have a couple of questions. The first is, as you're putting together the construction plan, is there any modeling that looks at how many cars divert off the main thoroughfare while it's under construction and use a secondary roadway? For instance, let's say the secondary north-south roadway is Washington and Adams Street through Abington. Do we have a sense of how many cars we expect are going to duck off Route 18 during work and use those roadways, and do we have any mitigation in place to manage the traffic?
At least one lane of traffic is going to be open both ways at all times. So there's not a reduction in capacity that's going to occur when work does occur. As Chris spoke about, most of this work, besides some of the underground utilities, happens on the shoulders. So you have, even where you have only 2 lanes, there's enough cross-section there to work on one side and get everyone over on the other side. To my knowledge, there hasn't been a modeling done of who's going to go where. The thought has always been that we leave those lanes open so people can get through, so we're not making folks try to find other ways and obstructing the traffic. And one thing that I'd like everyone to keep in mind, we're working on a baseline schedule. This whole corridor from Route 18 to Abington is not going to be ripped up in 1 week. The work, there's $11 million in utility work that has to happen at different places at different times. And obviously the utility work is one of the first things. So a lot of this job is going to be allowing the utilities to do the relocations, get the poles out of the way, move their manholes, in order for the civil work, which is more of an obstruction when you get involved with the roadway building, to get in there and do their work, even though their work is a lesser duration. So there hasn't been a study that I'm aware of any different ways they're going to go, but the mitigation to that is leave those lanes open when you're there. And as an aside, the contractor's going to work 7 to 3:30 unless we allow it and it's necessary to work at night. Everyone likes day work for the most part. That doesn't mean blocking roads at 8:30 in the morning when people are trying to get to work. All of the roadway access by the contractor is governed by Mass DOT, as well as the town, if they want to chime in, and District 5, because we're really in District 5 here. So this isn't a case of a contractor just goes out there and goes wild and rips everything up and then goes to another place and just works all around. It's measured and it's managed. So I'm not sure if that answers your question, but.
No, it doesn't, because driver behavior is really hard to predict, and that even though there may technically be lanes open in each direction, it still may not deter people from going on to other roadways. So I want to know if there's any plans in place for if that happens, which it does happen in other projects, that there's going to be some way that traffic is mitigated in the town, whether it's by police patrols, or are we going to monitor to see if it backs up on 58, or are we just going to let this happen, and if it happens, then we'll figure out down the road.
To answer your question, police patrols are under the control of the town of Abington. So wherever we work, whatever town it is, whatever city it is, if there's an adverse effect to an area, we try to mitigate it. Now, roads are roads, they're public roads, so we can't tell people you can't go this way. Now, trucks we can, but if the town makes a road, no trucks, what we try to do is keep people out of the neighborhoods and keep it so we're not causing such an effect that they want to go somewhere else. So I have a feeling that's not going to still answer your question, but the police are under the control of Abington. We'll work with Abington. Anything they like, we'll do whatever we can to help if there is an issue, as well as we manage this so we don't cause a giant traffic jam where everyone goes through someone's neighborhood. That's what we're here for.
I'd like to hear the
MassDOT.
Board of Selectmen's thoughts on this at some point before the evening's over. One more question. I know in some other projects that MassDOT has done, they've sent out weekly updates to let people know what's coming up on the week ahead, where the work's going to be, so that people can plan accordingly. Is that going to be the plan for community outreach for this project, or is it going to be a different cadence?
That is the plan for this project. There's an email list that hopefully you signed up for. Kate, help me on the details if I miss something. That there'll be a part of an email blast. There's a website, as well as there'll be press releases under major activities such as the bridges. But is that a good explanation?
It may not be weekly, it's gonna be whenever there's a change, so.
I mean, work changes on a just about weekly basis, so.
If you're working in one section for, say, 2 weeks, we wouldn't necessarily update.
And we'll tell you it's for 2 weeks. I mean, it'll say from April 1st to April 21st, they're going to be on the east lanes from Route 139 north doing utility construction. And so it may be, I think what you're saying is it may not be 1 week because we may be there for 3 weeks. But if it changes, we'll let you know. And there's an email blast, there's the website, and we've established some contacts too. And sometimes the towns and cities will grab our websites, so if someone goes to a town or city website, they get directed to our website also.
Yeah, the other thing I would just say is regionally, we do have on our database currently town managers and clerks from all the surrounding communities. And, you know, the hope there is that they'll publicize it to their residents so that they know what's going on and they maybe avoid the area before they get to a place where they need to cut off into a neighborhood. So it's trying to look at it regionally and to cut off any problems before the contractor gets to a certain area.
Right. Yeah, no, and I agree, and I think to Mr. Collins' question, I think that's something that obviously the police chief would be coordinating with the police chief of Weymouth as the time approaches and as the project begins. I think it's a little premature to be planning for the, you know, potential outflow of traffic. I think obviously the project's gonna be beginning in Weymouth, so I think we'll have a much better idea as the time approaches and what the experience is in Weymouth too. But obviously it's a legitimate concern.
Also, as an addition, Donnie reminded me, thank you, Donnie. Eddie Michelle is our resident engineer. His office is down here on the project. He will have weekly or bi-weekly, as needed, meetings with the town of Weymouth and the town of Abington, public works officials, or whoever they deem necessary and appropriate, to give them a rundown of what's coming up. And that's in addition to the public participation.
Just a question on the website. Does the website have a dedicated page just for this particular project? A dedicated link?
Yes.
It does,
Go
okay.
to that, so that address is for this project only.
So we could link that on our
Yep.
website, for the town website, that.
Happens all the time, yep.
Thank you.
You can even link for the sign up if you wanted to.
Yeah.
Go to the sign up page and get the URL, copy it, and link
We
it
will.
on your page.
Great, thanks.
Get the microphone.
Well,
Wow, you're slacking. All right, raise your hand if you have a question.
Thank you. John Otto, the fire chief. I got actually 3 questions, mostly logistics with this. The first one, just so everybody knows, I'm not going to get any answer tonight, and I know that, but I'm kind of working the crowd back here, that if the lights at 18 and 139 may be a simple fix, is that something we can do sooner than later, like really soon? I know you're not going to answer that tonight, but if
No,
you start
I can
thinking
tell
that-
you, if there's a change that's identified that, I believe there must be a state signal there at 139 in 50, in 18, right? If there's something that's identified that can be done to help out now, or 6 weeks from now, or 8 weeks from now, we have no problem doing it. My only, not worry, but my only concern is if there's some easy fix out there, why wouldn't it have been done before? And maybe there's an answer for that. But we are here to be good neighbors. And we don't get any benefit out of causing trouble. You know, we're state employees, we're construction managers, we want to build this job the best we can with the least amount of impact to everybody and have a nice, safe road that works for everybody. And I'm not going to cut you off now that I see the fire chiefs here. Before, no, because this goes to the fire, and this goes to the citizens and the selectmen. There will be a meeting, one for Abington and one for Weymouth, that Eddie will have with the fire chief and the police chief, if EMS is separate, whatever, before we really get into the heavy-duty part of this construction. So there'll be more conversations with you also, and Tom will be there too.
And that's what I'm leading to. EMS is not separate with us, not only for Abington, but for every community south of Abington. Route 18, as you know, is a thoroughfare for the ambulances going to South Shore Hospital or to Route 3 to Boston if we have a major trauma.
We will cast a wide net on that, and Donnie will help us.
If I could finish. And I understand the construction has to take place, especially the bridge, on those weekends when that's going to be diverted, as well as other times when it's down to 2 lanes. We just have to make sure that all ambulances can get through. Everybody's got to get through there, obviously, but ambulances, to try to keep the response time to the hospital down, especially during those weekends. I'm assuming you have some type of a plan for the police to help traffic through, perhaps shut things down so we can get through quickly if needed. Because that's not only Abington, this is every community south of Abington heading there as well. The third question, I don't need an answer on that tonight.
I can answer that one, though.
Okay, go ahead.
Some of these I can answer. There is no such plan at this time. However, what you speak about is what we typically do whenever we do something like this. So my answer would be there isn't one now, but there can be one, and there will be one, and it'll be with you and all the other communities. What we have done in the past, and I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but what we've done in the past is what we'll have is one of the officers on the other side will stop traffic where that ambulance can come up, what we call contraflow, and get to where it needs to go. So that's not on paper now, but that will be and can be.
We'll remind you as we get closer, and just as long as that's...
I'm sure you will.
And
Thank
the
you.
last thing is, this is going to affect the Abington headquarters station, which is directly on Route 18, as you know. Now, as we proceed with this, there are going to be times when you're working directly in front of my station, as we have in past major projects like the sewerage that came through town. And on a per diem basis, we have to redeploy our forces because we simply cannot get in and out on the ramp. It's just, if you're paving right in front of that, obviously we can't be putting 40-ton vehicles on that while you're doing it. So 2 things on that. One, I'm going to have to find a place to redeploy my forces. North School is perfect. I want to use that at least as a per diem basis. Years ago in the early 90s, we used the old Civil Defense building on Brighton Street, which is not there anymore. North School is going to be ideal for us on a day-by-day basis, simply while you're working in front of our station, and we can bring it back and forth. That's a separate conversation for Abington. My other question on the timing is, I hope you don't do this, however, in the winter, because for me to keep fire apparatus outside on a January, February day, they do have tanks of water, which we do have to house them. I have no place to house them. I will be, on a per diem basis, putting these outside. So do you have any idea, or at some point, when you think you'll be in the vicinity of 1040 Bedford Street, when we cannot get in and out of there, and I do have to redeploy that? Is this something that's going to go on through the winter, or do you not do major work like that during the freezing months?
We do not do major work like that during the freezing months. So
Problem solved. Excellent.
yeah, it will not, the work that we do, that kind of work, which would make it so you can't get in and out, never happens in the winter. Certainly not this winter, and it doesn't happen there. That's all spring and summer work. And to your concern, that can be worked through Eddie and Donnie. This is not the first time this has happened. I don't think there's going to be a lot of time, but obviously 1 minute is too much for you. I get that. But we'll work with Gioso and to make it so we make that less. And when there is a time where there could be an access problem, there are some remedies that we've worked out with Donnie when necessary, when it has to happen.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, how are you? My name is Rob Christian. I'm actually a Weymouth resident. I wasn't able to attend the first session Weymouth down. I represent a couple streets, Michelle Drive and Robert Post Drive. I have a couple questions. I'll ask one and then give somebody another opportunity to speak, or ask both, whatever your preference is. The first question is really to amend Mr. LaFawn's first question. not only at intersections where there's a traffic signal, but any turn on a street that doesn't have a through street, a cul-de-sac town, for example, which Robert Post Drive, Michelle Drive, Jessica Lane, and there's one more. You have to look at what it is, but there's 4, just in Weymouth, from Abington up to the Pond Street intersection. There's 4 cul-de-sac towns. There's about 55 single-family homes, about 10 buildings that are apartment buildings, and there's even more south of Abington. So this applies to Abington residents as well. It's very dangerous to make any kind of left-hand turn onto Route 18, as it is, and it's 2 lanes of traffic either way. I actually hadn't realized it, and I think it's a great thing, but I hadn't realized it's actually going to be a bicycle lane. So we're not talking about maybe 2.5 lanes of traffic that somebody would have to turn to take a left-hand turn. And it's the only way, if you're on the southbound side of the Route 18, it's the only way that you can get to the highway, to the hospital, as the fire chief mentioned, if there is an emergency, to shopping or what have you. That's really the way everybody's going to go. Is there anything in place to remedy the impact that would have for such households?
Nothing specific to this road, which is going to be emblematic of a lot of 2-lane each direction roads where people want to take a left. There's nothing specific for this project except for the fact that there are speed limit signs posted, the road will be marked correctly, and it'll be built according to standards. But no, there's nothing specific we've done here to assist people making that left.
Would it be possible to have, I don't know what the term is, but there's a center lane, kind of a, I don't know what the term is, would assist people from who are trying to get onto the road, but it's not really a lane for traffic. It's still 2 lanes, but in areas where it's 1, 2, 3, 4 streets that have a need to take a left-hand turn in Abington or in Weymouth, both preferably. Is that something that could be presented and a possibility?
I assume you're talking about a left-hand turn lane, which we add sometimes where you're going into like a major area.
Right.
They've been added where appropriate, where the traffic allows, but to put them at every street, it just starts taking up way too much cross-section.
Right, that's really the reason. There was an option of putting a left turn, what's called a continuous left turn lane through the project.
Thank you.
But the impacts to right-of-way were just too significant. We'd be taking a lot more property, and also to wetlands. And on this project, we had to coordinate quite a bit extensively with Mass DEP to get the project permitted. So that was really the obstacle of why it wasn't made to a 5-lane section.
Okay. Can I ask another question, or should I give somebody an opportunity to speak?
Go ahead, you got the mic.
And this might not be the right forum to go into detail, but it's to be expected with any major project like this. There will be certain hardships and grievances that will take place. Some are already happening. So I think it hasn't happened yet in Abington, but in Weymouth, every cross street, regardless of whether it's a through street or not, has signage, regardless if it's any pre-existing signage. For example, Michelle Drive doesn't even have a stop sign before it goes onto Route 18. There's now 4 signs that are posted. One of the signs on both sides state that it's illegal to exceed the speed limit, or you'll have a double fine. But of course, to get on and off the street, you would have to come off Route 18 and see that the construction is obvious. It seems like that the signage is there in certain situations makes sense, but in most situations, perhaps, and certainly not all situations, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of common sense.
Owen McDonald from Weymouth called me today. So we're aware of your concerns about the number and size of those signs. The signs were placed per MUTCD, which is the federal guidelines for where the signs need to be, and they are the appropriate size for what's called out in the plans. However, we're going to contact our folks from District Traffic and from Park Plaza Traffic to see if some of those signs can be reduced in size. They're actually designed properly. They're where they're supposed to be.
I understand.
Because if someone comes and visits you, and then they go speeding down the road and they get a ticket, and the police officer gives them a double ticket, they could say, well, there's no sign. So we have Peter and Paul here we got to take care of. But we are going to look into those signs and see if our traffic experts say, look, you can shrink those down because there's only 4 houses there, you don't need a highway sign. So my answer is, we heard you. I heard you this afternoon when Owen called me. We're gonna look into it. I can't promise all the signs are gonna go because they're not all gonna go. Maybe some of them can be reduced, but the police need those signs there to keep the people who work on the job safe, as well as the people who drive through the job safe, because people, if they're speeding through a construction zone, it's not good for anybody.
Right.
Including the contractors, employees, the men and women that work for the contractor, the men and women that work for the state, and anyone driving through there. So we need that enforcement ability to keep people good to go slow,
Right.
but we don't need to make it so it's onerous. So we're
Right.
gonna find out.
Right.
And I don't have an answer, but we're gonna find out.
And I completely
I've
understand
made
where
the
you come
calls
from.
already.
And safety is something that
Yeah.
I absolutely would prioritize. I would suggest that maybe the one sign that says road work would be sufficient to enforce that.
The problem is,
It's a
if it doesn't
possibility.
say fines are doubled, then they can't double the fines. It is
Well,
all legal, you get involved
I
with
get
all
that.
but
I
I'm
get
gonna
that. I
ask
guess
my guy.
what it comes down to is a homeowner's peaceful enjoyment of the property. Is that below somebody who's knowingly breaking the law and getting a double speed limit violation? I feel that that's not equitable. But we can move on. I appreciate that you give me some time. I have one last.
We can do about that.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Can I ask one last question? That would be acceptable.
Can we get
Sure.
an Abington person at the end? Every question needs to be answered, will be answered, well, or
Yep.
maybe be answered. Next, any other questions?
My question is, Route 18 in Abington is all ledge. Will there be a lot of blasting or removal of some sort there that would be of a noise or problems to the area residents, businesses off of 18?
There's no blasting in this contract, and there's none anticipated.
If you could just state your name and address too when you get the microphone, please.
And I'll just put as an addendum to that, if there was, which I don't believe there is, I know there isn't, and I don't believe there will be, if there was, it's a big deal. We gotta go through the fire department. It's not something we just go out there like Wile E. Coyote. We have to go through a lot of stuff. So, but there's none anticipated. And
Hi.
none shown on the plans.
My name's Kathy Creighton. I'm worried about the traffic going off to the side streets. I think I heard that it's going to be a traffic lane in each direction and you're not going to divert ever off of the main road. But what happens to the construction vehicles? Are they going to be told that they're not allowed to go there on the side streets? Because most of our side streets can't handle it. They're in pretty bad shape.
The only detour, just to go back to one of your first, it's almost a question, there are the Pond Street detours in Weymouth for 3 weekends. So that we know that. If there's a roadway that says no trucks, obviously our trucks aren't gonna go on there. Our guy, our contractor, Gioso, has no business to be on side roads for no reason. He's working on the main road. So they don't need to use side roads as a cutoff, and certainly a contractor doing this much work is gonna be a good neighbor also. So they don't have any desire to go through neighborhoods. So I can speak for the state contractor and the people working for us, we're not gonna use side roads as a trucking route. And any other person driving a truck from another project, if they're breaking the law, they should be cited accordingly. But once again, the plan is not to disrupt things so much on Route 18. And I know that this is a lot to swallow with $68 million worth of work coming in Abington and Weymouth, but it's over a 5-year period. It's not all in 1 year where the whole shooting match gets all ripped apart and we do all this work. It's very small portions. It's a lot of work, but it's managed, and on a weekly or daily basis, we get complaints, Donnie gets complaints, Kate gets complaints. If there's an issue, we'll deal with it then, that day. If it's a way to mitigate it, we will. And that doesn't mean we can fix every problem. There will be some backups. Things probably won't work as well sometimes, but for the most part, you've already got a lot of congestion here on this roadway. So, and you've got a lot of 4-lane, 2-lane, 4-lane, 2 lanes. So a lot of that is determined by how people can get through. So we're not going to use the neighborhoods for trucking routes.
But our roads, our side roads, do not have no truck signs on them. They are not there. I don't know whether the town wants to consider that for some of these streets. There's some smaller streets, Vineyard, Summit, and there's some farther up towards Route 18 that are small roads that are not in great shape. Because I do have concerns that people will take the shortcut, the contractors or perhaps the subcontractors that are working at times. I know
You don't
it's
have to
not-
worry about the contractors. We got all the money. We'll take care of them.
So what do we
I don't
do?
worry about
What do they do
contractors.
if they start driving through our neighborhoods, the contractors or
We-
the subcontractors?
The state will manage the state contractor appropriately.
And
That
will
I
the-
can assure you. It's me.
Will there be a list of who the subcontractors are that are working with?
That's public knowledge, and that can be certainly forwarded to the town. That's no problem at all.
I think that would be helpful.
I don't have it now, but
Understand.
when we do, you know, and I know that you still may have another question, everyone should know that over the near-term construction schedule is construction signage, erosion controls over the next few weeks or months. We have to do an environmental pre-construction meeting, which is a big deal with the DEP. That has to happen before we can do any work in wetlands or near wetlands. We have a lot of mitigation on this project. Over the winter, it'll be a lot of excavation off the road, getting these detention ponds and mitigation areas ready to accept the flow from the roadway as we build it. So really, you're not going to see a lot of us until the spring, but that still matters. But we never really touched on that yet, so.
And the only other question I had was 1325 is proposed to be used as an area for the DOT work. Is there any other properties in Abington that are going to be used that are along the Route 18 corridor or nearby?
You would have to ask Gioso and Sons that. They're the ones, we give them a contract, they're lowest qualified bidder through federal and state laws, and they use their land as long as it's legal. They can use their land for any contract they have. I don't think they own any other property. Chris, are you aware of that? Yeah, just that land, yep.
Well, pay attention.
I'm sorry, who's that? I have Joe Shea, 3 Wyman Road, member of the Abington members of the advisory board on Southfield. If I'm, the Southfield development plans now, the rural plans call for up to 75,000 trips coming off the base on a daily basis. These plans are somewhat new. Am I correct that the plans for this project do not reflect that? These plans were developed, the plans for the current Road 18 widening do not include the full rollout on Southfield. Is that correct?
Thank you, Brian.
There was it's required to do what's called a FDIR when you have a development. So Union Point, I believe it's now called, is not allowed to develop over a certain threshold. If they do, they have to permit again through that process.
They are going through that process
Okay,
again.
what Route 18 is designed for is a certain build-out in the base, and it's a fairly aggressive one. I don't know what the number is, so many millions of square feet of development. You mentioned 75,000 vehicles. That doesn't ring a bell with me. I'm not sure what you're planning, whether, is it the Amazon development that you're talking
No,
about?
this is before Amazon. Right now, the plans call for 3,800 housing units, up 1,000 from the earlier plans, and I think it's up to 8 million square feet of commercial.
Right. What's permitted now through what's called the Section 61 finding with MassDOT is a certain threshold of vehicle trips per day. Off the top of my head, I don't know what that is, but it does include fairly extensive development within the.
I think you find that what you have is based on 2,800 residential and 3 million square feet commercial.
Then you'll have to go through the permit process again, and your development will be contingent upon what Route 18 can handle.
Okay, I was just raising that question because I think everybody needs to be aware that they are going through a planning process now, but there is a potential issue there at some point.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? The gentleman from Weymouth had another question you want to ask?
Can I ask a question in between?
Yes, please.
Are there going to be multiple crews
Absolutely.
along the route? So it's not
Yes,
just going
but
to be
they'll be
one?
managed and spaced accordingly. So we're not gonna make it do this snake all the way up through, but there better be multiple crews. There's way too much work to be done in 5 years. There will be crews and it'll get you, just to answer the question fully, there's gonna be crews, there already are now. There'll be N-Grid Gas, there'll be, is it Eversource, the electric here, Tom? Eversource, and you're gonna have Verizon. So you have, I think, 7 utilities that are gonna be out here, and that will be permitted through MassDOT to make sure we know where they are, and they actually have to coordinate with our resident engineer and our contractor, so we're not in each other's way. The schedule actually has that all together when it's completed. And the contractor will have, you know, forgetting about the bridge work, you know, you may have 3 or 4 major crews working. Obviously, there's some in Weymouth, some in Abington, so there will definitely be multiple crews. There's a lot of work to be done in 5 years, and, but it's doable, but it needs to be coordinated correctly, and it will be.
And just one other question, you work right through the winter, you don't stop in the winter, or is it?
We do not work on the roadway during the winter. There are things that we can do, especially for this contract, that we can do off-site, so to speak, or away from the roadway, which is the building of these detention ponds. There's a lot of drainage works that we have to put in. That can all be done off the roadway because snow, and, you know, we know why we don't work in the winter. Utilities, the ones that can work in the winter, we'll want them to work during the winter also. Some of the cabling or the overhead work they can do in the winter, as long as it's not a blizzard, they can do over the winter, so we want to keep them going too. So there is not a winter shutdown, but let's just say, as far as the roadway is concerned, you're not going to see us out there doing a lot of winter work.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other board members have any other questions at this time? Sir, do you have a question?
You're up.
Thank you. This isn't really the right forum to go into detail, but to the extent that any structures along Route 18 that may fall under Department of Transportation's jurisdiction, let's say outdoor advertising, to the extent that it's affected by the widening of the project, what's the process in terms of how that will work and who would be the parties involved?
So, there is a robust right-of-way plan with the signs, and each sign that needs to be relocated, the owner of that sign gets a letter, and I don't know, maybe there's some folks here with businesses, or there's even a light pole we have to move, and I'm not sure if that's Weymouth or Abington. But anything that has to be what we call R&R, removed and reset, the owner gets notice that, you know, we are ready to proceed with resetting that. And I believe, Tom, they have a choice whether they use the state contractor or they can get their own contractor there. So let's say you have Frank's Pizza. I don't want to use a real company. So Frank's Pizza, and you have a sign there's a lot of widening going on here. And you know, you need to move that sign. You're notified by our right-of-way division, and they tell you, okay, this is when we're going to move this sign, but you can do it yourself if you want to. And we will shepherd that process. It's run through a different part of the DOT, but we'll shepherd that. So you will be notified, and there are some options there.
In terms of how the move could impact those around it, how would those around it have a voice?
Well, if you're talking about signs or...
We're talking about a billboard.
Oh, a billboard? Is the billboard private property or is it state property?
It is private property, but it falls under the Office of Outdoor Advertising under Mr. Romano's office, his jurisdiction.
I'm not an expert because I'm a civil engineer, but I would tell you that if a piece of private property needs to be moved because of a state project, that piece of property needs to be moved to a place where it's legally okay to be. Okay. So I think you may have a little more knowledge of outdoor advertising than I do, so you probably got me there. So, but all I can tell you is we're not going to allow something to be moved in a place that's now, it's not with the law. So, and if you have a specific location, you feel free to reach out to us. We'll talk to you about it.
Okay. If maybe afterwards I could get some contact information. Last question would be, and I assume if it doesn't need to be moved, that there would be no impact.
Yeah, if you know, I drove down here tonight, when I came down, I could see the stakes. There's a lot of stuff that needs to be moved. There's a lot of widening that's going on here, Abington and Weymouth. Yeah, we don't go looking for trouble. If something is not impacted by our work, it stays where it is, as long as it's safe. Now, if it's gonna hang over a sidewalk, it's not okay. But if it's on someone's private property and the road simply gets closer and it's safe, no issue.
Thank you for your time.
You're welcome.
I had one more, Ken.
Sure, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, it's really important for folks to use that email address. You were talking about speed and processes like that, and so, by using the email address that's up there, sure that you're being responded to and that we're, you know, we know what's going on and we can address it. So I just really want to encourage people to use that email address, and that's the way that we can track things.
Bob, the gentleman has a question. While you're going over there, Andrew?
So you were talking about, and there is a lot of widening, I've noticed the state as
Sure,
well.
yeah.
So do you do any kind of outreach to the residents and the businesses that are actually gonna be impacted directly by?
Absolutely. That's why we have Edward down here, and we have Tom Akins, who works in Boston, but he is the area engineer. As we move along the roadway, hey, tomorrow or next week, you know, we're gonna have to move your driveway a little bit because we're coming through. So the answer is yes, to everybody, to homeowners, to businesses. The contract requires that everyone has constant access. Certainly, the fire department is really up there. But a restaurant or a home, they need to get in and out too. I've gotten a call from my wife that they blocked the driveway. So, yeah, and that's hands-on contact. So there will not be a person in this town that can say that they went out and just blocked my driveway and they never told me we were gonna do it. Even in the contract, there's leafleting that we have through Gioso and their public outreach specialists, but nothing beats a knock at the door or a handwritten note to say, hey, we're coming through. And I'm sure you know this, but it's not like we jackrabbit around the job. I mean, they're gonna see when the roadway and the curb crew's coming, they're gonna see us coming. And we can stay ahead of that a little bit and let people know, hey, we're gonna be here Tuesday, you know, you're gonna be able to get it out, it's no problem. If we have to trench in front of someone's driveway, we have steel plates available. We've gone so far as to, in some of my other career places I've worked, what time do you go to work? I go, oh, you go at 9? Okay, good. At 9:15, we're gonna block your driveway. We'll have it open by 2. Okay. I mean, it goes down to that nuts and bolts,
Okay.
hands-on as we go through.
Because that's important, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why we have a full crew, Donnie. You know, we have the public outreach and all of us do. Yep.
Thank you. Over here, sir?
Hi, Fred Reeder from 35 McKinley Drive in Abington. Just like to know, are they going to use poles for utilities for the electric and telephone along this road, or is it going to be underground?
Yes, they're gonna use poles, right, Tom? Yep. Yep, they're gonna relocate poles. That's their prerogative, and that's, we're not doing any kind of an infrastructure improvement. When you do a state project, they actually, there's a reimbursement formula per state law, but they don't get a betterment out of it. They don't get a better facility. They get what they had just out of our way.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions, comments? None? Bob?
Mr. Chairman, Robert Manning, 34 Orange Street. It's just a couple of questions. One is, has the determination, I drive 18 every day between the hours of 4:30 and 6 o'clock every morning. I've noticed all the orange stakes popping up on the street. Has eminent domain already been decided upon? Have those residents been notified that that's coming? Retaining walls, structural, the question about moving main signs of advertisement for commercial businesses back closer to their properties, zoning violation, plausibilities. Has that all been taken into consideration by the state?
Federal contracts cannot be advertised unless all the right-of-way is settled. There's a right-of-way certificate which has to be presented to the federal and state government before they'll let a contract out, because you can imagine what might happen if they didn't do that. So the answer to your question is yes. We do have some folks in Weymouth and Abington who don't know maybe exactly what we're going to do in front of their house, but we can deal with that. We can tell them. And I mean whether they're going to get a wall or a slope or, you know, one of those treatments. And we can let the folks know. I believe they're probably told during the time of right-of-way, or they're given a general idea. But we can, if someone wants to know, we can reach out to them too. But yes, all the right-of-way is settled, and that's a requirement by state law.
Okay, good. The other question was, there's an animal hospital at the foot of the bridge in Weymouth, just across from the Main Street Cafe. I mean, it's a very viable animal hospital, and being an animal guy, having spent a lot of time there, it's kind of important that we make sure people realize that's still going to be accessible during the time that the bridge is going to be closed, as well as, I understand the one lane doesn't change. I've been driving it for 20 years, so I know one lane on Route 18, but those weekends you're shutting down and you're bringing traffic back far enough away that the accessibility to the commercial properties within that area up to the bridge will be notified somehow to let people know that animal hospital is still available to them if they have to.
There will be a massive public outreach before those weekends occur. The first one we're looking at, we anticipate it's going to occur between spring and summer of 18. Yes, everyone will be notified. There will be VMS boards placed. There will be a massive public outreach. There'll probably be another briefing with the Selectmen of Abington, as well as the folks in Weymouth, and other delegations. There'll be, everyone will know what's going on. Do you remember what we did in Braintree a couple weekends ago? I mean, it was pretty much out there. And that was almost a minor deal compared to this, because people didn't have to change what they were doing. They just keep driving, and we squiggle them over to the right, and they come back to the left. So you will know about it. It'll be on BZ. It'll be on all the web pages. And there will be, one thing we have is plenty of VMS boards, which are the variable message signs. And we'll put those up and say local businesses open to the bridge. And we can do a million things like that to make sure people get through. And yeah, the answer is yeah, we're gonna take care of you. And then as we lead up to that, if somebody says, hey, what about this? Okay, we can do that. We'll add that. You know, those are one of the things. That kind of outreach is easy for us because we don't have to say no. Geez, that we can't do it. Federal guidelines, or you just can't do it. We can reach out all the way, and we will.
Are you talking about South Dakota?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, you were already in touch.
Yeah.
It's for me, it's fairly important, especially on weekends where we're, the 3 weekends you're including on, that place gets its biggest business, probably biggest bang for the buck after 6 p.m. And it's nice to know that they'll be able to get there if they have to get there, because other than that, they have to go all the way over to Braintree to find the closest treatment center, or all the way down to Hanover. So
We're going to get them up there. No problem.
That's really important to me as far as that is concerned. It's an animal question. I know it's not a huge thing for everybody, but I think it's important.
It means enough to you, so it means enough to somebody else. So.
Unlike Bob, I'm more concerned about Main Street Grill. Is that
everything will be open.
I'm sorry, Ken, I didn't bring that up. And my final question is it comes back down to the neighborhoods again. And I know Weymouth is a city now, and we're a town. I believe in fair and justice for both ends of the project. I know it's going to work. As you said in the beginning of the conversation, your presentation, you're working in segments of where you can get utilities moved and then doing whatever you have to do to get that part done. But is there an expectation for the town of Abington, roughly when to expect actual commercial construction to actually affect the town? Is it 18, 19, 20? Do we know?
Yeah, I can give you, the reason why we don't have a perfect schedule right now is because of that $11 million worth of utility work, and we only gave the contractor what we call notice to proceed about 6 weeks ago. He actually has more than that to give us a schedule, and we have a draft one that we're working through it. We have to bring it to all the utility companies and make sure they buy in before we start working on it. But to answer your question, is the Abington portion of the job has been identified as an area that we might be able to get into sooner than later. So we're going to try, and once again, the schedule will be available. There'll be a short-term schedule available on the website. There'll be what I call waypoint schedules available to the town officials, through Donnie and Kate. It's no problem. We've identified as what we call the south portion here as something that we might be able to get the utilities done with and get going on some early widening work, curb work, and roadway work. We have a drainage thing we got to kind of work out. The contractor has some ideas that might be able to be incorporated to speed things up and make it a little easier, so we're working with that. But I can tell you, this area here is not at the end of the job. It's more at the beginning than at the end.
And there's just one quick question that came up from your presentation. It was the difference in timing to get from the train stations on the Kingston line to the train stations on the other line. I'm talking, the other question that comes into mind is if people start using that, is it adequate parking? At the overflow parking you may need because you're moving people over?
We got a great gentleman from the T here, and he's been waiting to answer a question all night, and we never got to him in Weymouth, so here's his chance.
That's all right, good evening. So to answer your question, yes, there's plenty of parking available at Randolph-Holbrook or Brockton Station if that's more appropriate for those folks who want to join us on the Middleborough-Lakeville line.
I just want to make sure, that's all, because that's, there's always great ideas, and then 300 cars show up and there's only parking for 50, so everyone has to go park all over the street.
Yeah, I can tell you that I've already heard the people speaking about the parking, and they have it well in hand and that's something as a roadway guy, it never comes into my mind, parking, or you just drive, but they have it well in hand. And I'm sure there's going to be a huge outreach about that too, through MassDOT, because we're all the same organization.
Absolutely. I mean, one thing, and it shames me to admit this, but we've become good at not running trains and running buses and other alternative means of transportation with all the capital improvements that we've made on the commuter rail. So we've gotten really good at messaging out best routes, best alternatives. So we'll be right there with you folks and with the Highway Division from start to finish.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, any other questions? I want to stress the importance of information and education. We have to educate ourselves as much as possible. So with that being said, we want to make sure that our town, go to our town's website. We're going to have current information as this project goes along. Hopefully we'll have links to the states, and also subscribe to, Abington has a thing where you sign up and it will send you updates as things go on. So hopefully you'll be updated about the project and sign up for the state's DOT's website, please. As far as safety on Abington roads, I was on the sewer commission, and we would have a weekly meeting as the sewer project was going on with all the public safety, the DPW, even the school committee sat on that because it affected a lot of Abington's roads. School committee might not be relevant in this case, but I would hope that when the time comes in the working in Abington, that we have those meetings with the public safety departments and a representative from the construction companies, so we know that for this week, we're gonna put signs on the street that says no trucks allowed, that sort of stuff, so we know exactly what's happening. I'm also gonna recommend that every meeting from now on, we have as an agenda item, discussion, an update, and discussion, because what Joe says, we'll see those plans. Joe, you know the open meeting law, we can't vote on anything tonight, especially about what you said, because on the agenda, it just says Mass DOT presentation, it's not listed as agenda item. However, that being said, future meetings, it will be listed as agenda item, and we could probably take votes on stuff like that. So we definitely want, for the next meeting, get those plans that we talked about to see if there is gonna be a left-hand turn on 139. So that's all I have to say.
Mr. Chairman, we'd be more than happy to come back in March before we.
That's what I was gonna ask, actually.
Yeah.
Is it- Yeah,
More than happy, Rick, just let us know.
that would be great if you could,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, any other board members having questions?
No.
Anything? I want to thank the audience
you.
so much, very polite, and no unruly people, so it was great. We can get.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. And I'd like to thank our state rep and our state senator for showing up. Appreciate that. Thank you. We'll take a brief 5-minute recess.
Justin's ready.
We're ready, let's go.
All right, we're back. Thank you. Thank you all for coming.
Agenda item.
Agenda, approval of September 18th, 2017, open and executive session minutes.
Motion to
I believe
approve.
Tom was not here at that meeting, so we have a motion to approve the minutes of September 18th.
He entered late.
I entered late.
No, you did.
Yeah, right here.
Oh, you're right.
I can approve after I entered late.
Yes, you can, I'm sorry. I see at the beginning. We have a motion, we have a second.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve the minutes. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, unanimous. Executive session minutes of September 18th.
Motion to accept the executive session with the exception of anything that has to be continued on.
And hold.
And
Okay.
hold.
Sorry, motion's made,
Second.
seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous vote on that minutes. Approval of St. Patrick's Day Parade, March 18th,
You want to have Mr. Bailey
2018.
speak? Mr. Bailey. Put it in the calendar. No, okay.
The Abington, the 39th Annual St. Patrick's Day Parade, Sunday, March 18th, 1 p.m. The usual route. Any questions? Any motion?
Motion to approve the St. Patrick's Day Parade to happen on March 18th, 2018 at 1 p.m.
Second?
Just to amend it, just in conjunction with public safety, just.
Motion's made and the amended motion is made and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous vote. Yes.
I made the motion. Andy opened, Alex second?
No, other way around.
Although, I'm sorry. Alex,
All right, can you explain to us what this is? Old Colony Planning Council needs someone to sign documents? Is that-
can we close some of the doors, please, so we can hear?
Sorry, don't encourage it. We have a letter from the Old Colony Planning Council. The towns with a population of more than 14,000 need a signatory member, an elected official from the community.
The suggestion was just to make this I'm sorry, to designate the chairman by title. That way, it's not something that they've got to continue to request that the organization continue to do as the individual happens to change over time.
So whoever the chairman is has
Sounds like a
the
good idea,
authority.
yeah.
Would the chairman be signing anything really important, or is it just?
You
kind of-
betcha. Signing his life away.
I'm not gonna go in debt or anything. All right.
It's too late.
That's fine with me if you folks wanna make that motion.
Motion to make the chairman of the Board of Selectmen, the Old Colony Planning Council, the elected official to sign for the town of Abington.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Here we go. Now we get into the fun stuff. Discussion on public comment policy. Let's see what we have here. As requested, I spoke with town council regarding the above. In a telephone conversation with Greg Cobo at KP Law, I was informed there are several limitations on public comment in light of the open meeting law. KP Law does not have a specific bulletin or model policy, but advise that municipal boards, particularly Board of Selectmen, the following, should not be using this as a means of having issues raised that did not otherwise make the legally posted agenda, that items raised during public comment generally should be considered for future agendas, should not be having any substantive, discussion on items raised during public comment, also that in light of the fact the open meeting law provides for board, committee, council discussions in the case of legitimate emergencies, there wouldn't be any need to do so under the provision of an agenda. Okay, and the page after that is our policy, I believe. Now, we discussed this, it was probably close to 2 months ago now, and I know that some people have had some different varying opinions. I think even some of those opinions have changed as to what we want to do with this. We want to amend our public comment policy, which we have, it's always our last item, action discussion item. People are forced to sit around if they want to talk to us to raise any issues.
Any issues that are on the agenda?
Any issues, that's our comment.
That's what it is right now.
Any issues on the agenda.
Correct.
But if that's the case, then they could comment them, they should be commenting on those issues when that agenda item gets brought up.
No,
No, not necessarily, because it's not a public hearing,
Right.
so it's for us to discuss. So if they wanted to make a public comment, then they would have to do so.
Well, if that's the case, then what, should we put public comment at the beginning, because if we're gonna talk on an agenda item, why would they wanna talk about it after we've already voted on
That's
it?
true.
No, I have
Yeah,
no problem with
I'd
that.
have no problem with that either.
Wow, I said something.
So we would put public comment right up after public announcements, I would guess.
People have no problem with the policy as it is now. I know we've got, it's on the agenda because there were some discussions.
Well, there were, but like you said, some people have changed their opinion since then.
Well, I think based on what you get
Yes,
from the
that
town
and-
council too,
Well,
I think.
right, the information that we got,
Reinforces
That
what
and
we have.
other things that we've gotten since then.
So then,
So-
other than moving it from where it goes at the rear to the beginning after public announcements, that's the only change we'd be voting on?
Yeah, so I would make a motion to keep the policy the way it is, just put public comment at the beginning of the meeting after public announcements.
I'd second that.
So we have a motion and a second. I'd just like to bring up, I looked at several towns, and a lot of towns have this, basically, it's the same policy that we have, more or less. One town that I thought was kind of a neat thing, though, had, anyone who wishes to participate in the, they call it resident public comment portion of the Board of Selectmen meeting, must notify, they have a finance director, but this.
Thank you.
The town manager in writing at least 48 hours in advance of the scheduled meeting with a specific interest for wishing to speak. That way, in this case, the town manager would be able to refer them to, like, for instance, if they had a question pertaining to, you know, it ends up being a Board of Health issue, they would refer them to the Board of Health. But then you don't really have the spontaneity of someone coming in. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but this one is, you'd have to say, I want to speak in the public comment section, I want to speak about this, and have at least 2 days' notice of the meeting, so.
I think we could just, if someone wanted to get up and speak, that's fine. I'd like to keep the policy the way it is. I know Whitman does have public comment. and
Right.
It does not have to be an agenda.
But again, you want to keep it, that it.
I want to keep
has
it the
be
way,
a-
the policy the way it is.
It doesn't only
Just
speak
move
about
where-
agenda
Just
items.
move where it
on
is,
the
yeah.
agenda.
but just so I'm clear on this, so public comment comes before, so it has to be, comes before we do everything, and the public comment has to be on the agenda.
It has to be an
Has to be
agenda
an
item.
agenda
An
item.
agenda item?
Right.
Okay, so I guess this is my weird kind of question, which you'll all probably think is, but how does that, so do they just let Rick know? Does, say I want something, if I didn't do it, that it's not on the agenda, I'm a selectman, I can say that I want something on the next agenda. How are we gonna get that out to the public to
Well,
get on the next agenda? Do you know what,
If they
you know what I'm
wanted to
saying?
come up and speak about something, then we would just tell them that item we could put on the next agenda for you. But if they're gonna make comments, they can only make comments on things that are coming up on the agenda that night. For example, if we were going to discuss public comment, someone could have got up tonight and voiced their opinion prior, which might influence our vote.
I do agree with having it beforehand.
Yeah.
It's stupid if we vote on something and then they talk about it.
Exactly,
They could
yeah.
change, you know, they could.
And, you know, we listen to their opinion before we make a vote, if it's an agenda item.
Again,
I think
know
we're
your-
just,
You know what I'm-
Your concern is how do people, if they want to discuss something, to put it on the agenda, how do they go about doing
Yeah.
that?
Well, if somebody wants something on the agenda, they could let the office know, and like any agenda process, when we're putting the agenda together, we would propose it to the chairman, and the chairman ultimately has the final say on what goes on the agenda.
Or they could go to an individual member of the
Any
board,
member.
which has happened to me.
Correct,
and-
right.
Right, and it's happened to me,
Yeah.
right.
Well, that's why this is on the agenda.
Yes.
that's what, yeah,
Right.
exactly, yeah.
Okay, all right. I just, I
But a
sort
perfect
of wanna be
example is,
clear.
we had a resident from Niles Street send an email, you know, and I told them I put it on the agenda, and they came in and they spoke about it during that part of the discussion.
Yeah, no truck.
Yes, right, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, as a aside, an aside?
That's
For the grammar, right, an aside, we actually got notice today from Old Colony Planning Council that, that Niles Ave does actually qualify
Oh, good.
for a truck exclusion. So at a future, agenda,
On the
we
agenda.
would probably have that for, a board vote. I mean, our public safety officials have to, take a look at those results, but it does qualify in
Good.
terms of the traffic study information, so,
Residents will be happy.
so, yes, so.
All right, so we have a motion and a second to move our public comment section to the beginning of the meeting, probably the very first discussion item.
After public announcements?
Yeah, after public announcements. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous vote. Thank you. The policy stays the same, it's just moved. Discussion on, I'm reading quickly this email, and it says G&Os, and I'm going, what the hell is a G&O? But now I realize goals and objectives, sorry.
Sorry for.
Discussion on goals and objectives attached to the summary. Out of date of the current goals and objectives, you can see we are have been substantially complete. Others will be ongoing for some time and even indefinitely over the course of the next couple of weeks. The board members may wish to forward thoughts on additional new edits of the goals and objectives to me and Dory for compilation for a future board meeting that can be considered for adoption by the full board. This is 2 pages of goals. Does the board want to have the town manager give us a rundown on this, or we just want to read it on our own? And
Could I ask if it's possible that we add a date to these, as to when they were added, so we can trace the length that they've been on the list? Because right now, I mean, some of these things I don't even recall, so.
Most of these have been ongoing for a while, but, I mean, some of them.
Yeah, I think that, I don't know if you can go back and do that, but I think going forward, that's probably a good idea. is
I
to
mean,
say
we've been tracking them
this particular
essentially by
goal was adopted
yeah.
on this
Yeah, I
particular
just-
date.
yeah.
That's a good idea, yeah.
Just a suggestion, thank you.
Sure,
Why don't we do this? Why don't we,
do that and get them.
and I don't want to put off things until the next meeting, because we do it all the
He
time.
has to work on these, so.
But I mean,
The actual goals and
Every month we
objectives.
put off, the
Well,
less.
keeping in mind, like I said, a lot of these are, as you know, are ongoing. For instance, Griffin's Dairy is an ongoing endeavor and will be for, who knows, years to come, as an example. So, I think of more interest are other things
If there's
that,
new things.
new things or
could the board members read
deviations
this over, see if we think they're missing something that they think is an important goal, and we'll have it as an agenda item at the next meeting. We'll discuss the goals from individual members, and
We
we'll
can
vote on it.
adopt them.
We'll adopt them if the board thinks it's
And-
worthy.
And in the meantime, Bob, we will go back and put some timeframes, originations of some of these on.
Best guess, I guess, would be
Yes,
nice.
that would be fine. We'd be happy to do that.
Thank you very much.
So we should send those to you. I have a couple, but I'll just send them to you. then
And I'll
you can add
compile
those.
them.
Certainly.
Send it to Kerry?
To Kenny or to Rick?
I'll send them to Rick, I guess. He gets paid more than I do.
Well, send them to Dory, that way I'll,
She gets paid more than
we'll make sure they get on here if you send them to Dory.
Andy?
And Rick, I guess I would ask if you have any that you think
Absolutely,
should be
yes.
added too. That should be part of the
We've-
process.
I think we've always kind of considered these kind of
Joint.
a group effort,
Yeah.
yes.
And on that note, really, people watching on TV, I know this sounds ridiculous, maybe the board won't agree with you, but if you think there's something, goals and objectives are long-range goals, basically, for the Board of Selectmen. Maybe I can touch on
Right,
a
and
couple.
I think we always kind of try to make the distinction between the day-to-day operations
Right.
of the town. This is really not the day-to-day operations.
No, you're right, but I mean, one of them is facilitate plan for reuse of Griffin's Dairy. Continual landfill management has been going on for years, we're trying the monitoring of that. Union Point, Southfield, minimizing traffic impacts, that sort of stuff. So there is a lot of things going on, dog park development, so that's sort of the bigger issues that we're talking about. The next is discussion on FY 2018 budget process. Rick?
Right, and that's really just an update, which, as you, fortunately or unfortunately, it is that time of year again, and I'd like to say I measure my tenure and how many budget processes I have left, which is, those of you who've been through it, and financial officials and people who've been on the finance committee, it's, you don't jump for joy this time of year, so, but we have started the budget process this past week or two. We sent out our request to all departments. We are on a new system this past year. The town accountant has prepared it for submissions by our department heads. As of October 13th, it's been open for budget submissions, and we expect that everybody is hard at work putting their budget submissions together. So, as you know, we do have requirements of the town charter that I am supposed to be submitting a budget, transmit a budget to the Finance Committee on or by January 15th, and the attached guidelines that is in your packet are designed to put me in a position to do that. Obviously, that's the first draft of a budget to put us on track for a town meeting this spring, so, but what's attached is just notice for your knowledge that our budget process has begun, as well as knowledge that this fall is when we do update annually our five-year capital plan too, so. So we are on track, and our financial officers group will begin to get on track with our weekly meetings again. So the fun never stops. And our annual audit has also begun. And you probably, some of you may have received notice, but we did receive our free cash certification for this year, which is approximately 1.1 million, which very healthy, another excellent budget performance year. Without I know last year we had a 1.7 certification, but that also included a kind of a caveat with about $700,000 closeout of sewer receipts, sewer debt, which was one-time, legitimate one-time revenue, which we won't see again. So we're obviously very, very pleased with our free cash certification this past year. So that's where we stand at the moment, and the fun is about to begin, and it's I know, I see it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
So you're requesting a level service budget, but then you're also requesting a
Yes.
second budget as what?
Right. I mean, I think it's obviously, for the most part, most departments will be, and we'll be looking at level services, but it's also, I think, every department really, I think, has an obligation to request what they feel they need to operate and to be forward-thinking. And I think it would be, I wouldn't put anybody in a position of ever having said, you didn't give me a chance to ask for what I truly need, especially in the realm of public safety and things, in education. I think people have a professional obligation to ask for what they truly believe they need. So, but we also know that when push comes to shove, we have a tax limitation law, and state aid is not what it was in the mid-90s. It is what it is. So a true level services budget is something that we have to at least be cognizant of in terms of what is probably feasible. And then oftentimes, we're actually at a level services budget working backwards. That's the way it oftentimes is the reality. So that's what we'll probably be starting with. When we put the numbers together in January is probably what we're starting with. So we shall see.
Rick, do you put in the numbers for the health insurance?
At this point, I'm sorry.
I mean you. Are you the one that requests the health insurance budget?
Yes,
Okay.
I am, yes.
Any other questions?
Would it be possible to ask each head to submit a 6-month guesstimate of where they are in their budget for the allocated budget for this fiscal year? And just so we can get an idea by the second week in January of how each of our different areas are financially focused and where their weaknesses or their strengths are or whatever. Either they're short, they're long, they have extra, or they've already used more than they expected. To anticipate possible shortfalls or overages.
We can get that report anytime we want, right?
We do that on a monthly basis. That's
You do a budget to actual?
Yes, that's tracked monthly, yes. Yes.
We should start sending that out monthly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Town accountant tracks that on a monthly basis, yes.
So we can get that.
I can forward that to you
Yeah,
every month.
if you'd like it, we'd be happy
You
to
have
get
been,
you a
haven't you?
copy.
Not every month.
Obviously,
Yeah,
there,
but now
It's in the
that
past
it's
we've had.
almost
Yeah.
November,
right.
that now would be
Right.
a perfect time.
Yeah.
Obviously, there are some caveats, as you would expect, because some departments have more particular expenses that are more heavily seasonal than others, but for the most part, they tend to track on a reasonably 1/12 basis.
I'm just thinking that as a board, it would be nice to have, in a meeting, to have a review of where we stand on our finances, at least 6 months into the year.
Sure.
Just so we have a guess. I know it's not accurate, but I know it's close enough that we would have a good idea of any potential shortfalls coming up. Thank you.
Any other
Happy to get you.
question on the
I
budget?
did, just as far as the budget and town meeting, are you anticipating having town meeting as scheduled in the bylaw, or are we gonna look to move it out farther again this year?
I think
know it's early,
I
but,
think it's, yeah, I think it's premature
Okay.
for me to give you a good answer.
When will you be able to
It
give
would
us a
be
good
nice,
answer?
it would be nice to be able to hold a town meeting,
When we're supposed to.
but, yeah, in April. It would be nice to be able to do that, and there's the never-ending budget season puts a lot of stress on the financial staff to have the never-ending, and others, but it's premature to be able to say that, especially where, as you know, we are dependent heavily on state aid, and the
Yep.
never-ending budget process at the state level is, drives a lot of that.
When do you think you'd have that? Only because I think when we move town meeting around like this, maybe that has something to do with the low turnout, because people don't have it set. We know it's the first Monday in April, but now it's not the first Monday in April, and I know we need to do it, but
Well, to the best of my knowledge, town meeting has not been the first
No, it has not.
meeting in April in a long time.
I
So
agree, yeah.
people are probably rather used to a late May, early June town meeting, but I don't know. I don't have a good answer at this time. I think, like I said, a lot of it has been dependent upon the timing of the state budget process, not just in Abington, but in communities all around the
So maybe
state.
just
And
not
I
for
think
tonight.
also, I'm sorry, not to interrupt, but I think one of the things that I think we've done well is only had to hold the one night of town meeting, which I think in many ways is courteous to the public by, it's one thing to be, to have to delay town meeting, but it's another thing to be able to get your business done in an efficient manner too, by having it on one night, so, so it's, I know.
I also think by delaying town meeting, it kind of helps, we haven't had to have a fall town meeting in a while.
No, I agree. But so,
Exactly, so-
my point was gonna be, maybe in the future, we ought to discuss maybe changing the bylaw and putting a
Moving
different
it.
date on as
No,
opposed to
that's
the
a
April date. and
Fair
then-
point. That's a fair point.
Then it will be the same
Right.
Monday every year.
Right. I know,
Future reference, but,
good point.
All right, we're all set? Couple comments for those in TV land. We have 2 openings in the Park and Rec. Still 2 Sage Committee openings, and Surplus School Committee is still looking for 1 member at large of the town. I believe there may be an application in the works for that one, but please, I hope to, at our next meeting, which is November
November 13th.
At November 13th, I'd like to appoint all those positions, so please get your applications in. If you, there might be a glitch, you think, on the town website about getting the applications in, or maybe
It
not?
could be, because we're getting form submissions, but obviously we're not getting all of them, so.
Yeah,
when it's
and
the
Rick,
file-
they never got you today either, so
Yeah,
I would,
we don't know.
Can we give them an alternative?
print it out and
Well,
Yeah.
Yeah, you could
Scan
drop
it
it
or
off
get
here
it
at
up
the
there
town
or
hall.
something.
Yep,
Oh, yeah, and it's on the website, the actual application. You can
okay.
Yeah, you could
can
fill it
print-
out, print it, and
email it, scan it, and email.
email it to,
Please, if you're interested in any of those positions, we can definitely use you. Next, town manager's report.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, tomorrow is the deadline for our application for the Green Communities delegation, and we will have our application in. In fact, this afternoon, we met with the director of the program and our consultant working on this, our application with us from the Old Colony Planning Council. And we're on track. We will have, in fact, again, the director of the program was in our office working with us, trying to come to a final conclusion on how best to meet our 5-year reduction plan. So it's nice when you have the people at the top working with you to put this together. So again, we're hoping we don't have more high winds tomorrow, so, no, again, you hate to be pushing the deadline, but I think, under the circumstances, we still feel very confident we're in good shape, to meet the deadline tomorrow, so that's, and again, Dory has made this her life's work over the last, month and a half to make sure we get this done, so if we fail, it's completely on her back, and, well, no.
It's not easy being green.
If you start singing, then I will. And the asbestos remediation is commencing in the West Abington Hall, and the actual demolition will be commencing after that. There was a analysis and waiting period with DEP that had to go into, that is part of that process, and it's just been, I know, seemingly never-ending.
Well, I see they started by taking all the siding off, that was good.
That's,
And the windows were taken out today, so.
yeah, I prefer not to discuss that
I
part
think
of
it
the
was actually
process.
one of the point
That's
of-
more of the informal process
Yeah.
of the demolition, but, and the electrical aggregation program, as you know, is underway very soon, and we've had virtually no inquiries since the public process, public information process.
I thought that forum went very well.
So I think that was seemingly very successful, if that is an
And
indication.
I want to thank Abington Kim, they played it for 2 days straight.
Yeah.
So it was good.
Continuously.
Yeah, continuously.
Yeah.
So thank you.
And, let's see, moving on, I'll skip down to, at the health agent position, as you know, Sharon is retired, and I think all of you know Sharon well, and I want to obviously thank her for her many years of service, I believe 7, 8 years of service to the town, and unfortunately, the process of replacing her is upon us, and we did receive 15 applications. The job application period has now closed, and we'll be going through that process. We do have a little committee, the 2 members of the Board of Health, Dory and I, and Bob is serving, and we will be getting those applications out to our screening committee this week to start narrowing down the field. And we'll, decide collectively the best way to go forward. And unfortunately, as I said, filling that's not going to be easy. We do have probably some short-term needs to fill, just some spot issues, which we'll be working with our neighboring towns to get some coverage. But Sharon left us in terrific shape in terms of the normal routine annual activities, in terms of, cyclical inspections, et cetera. So, again, a truly dedicated professional, and she did not have to leave us in the kind of shape she did. She really commend her effort. So good luck to her, and I'm sure she'll do great in her whatever she takes on in her new life down south. So, and our Abington Rockland Rail Trail project. The DCR has approved the access permit to begin that project, and we will be finally, in the near future, getting the old railroad ties removed that are on Monroe Street, and Republic Waste Services has agreed, as part of their community service program, to donate some roll-off containers and to deliver those to facility in Brockton. So we will have to, through the grant, deal with the grant program for developing the rail trail to the grant will pay for the services to the disposal services, but Republic Services will be working with us to get the roll-off containers and to actually deliver them to Brockton. So that's obviously a nice gesture on their part.
Can I ask you a question on that?
Yes.
When it's done, the Abington, will that be asphalt, or will it be, it's not gonna be loose gravel, it's gonna be?
No, it'll be
It'll
be
be asphalt.
paved, yes. So people will be able to walk or bike all the way from Monroe Street all the way through to Hanover. So it'll be a nice project.
Okay, thank you.
And I think I've spoken on a couple other items there, but anything else worth mentioning, Dory? Okay. I think I'll leave it at that, Mr. Chairman.
Public comment? Yes, sir, please come up to the microphone.
Want to read the policy before we start?
You have to talk about something on the agenda.
645 Washington Street, Jack Bailey, St. Patrick's Day Parade Chairman. My question is, because of the noise in the background, I did not hear whether the parade was approved. Having said that, to whom do I direct my concerns about where the town now owns the center school and the North School? I need permission to use both properties, the center school for the assembly of part of the parade and the North School for bus parking. Whom do I direct my question to or my letter to?
You can work with Rick on that, that shouldn't be a problem. You'll still be there.
No problem.
Mrs. Jamison has granted you permission, I believe.
Well, we thank you very much. And I also want to just reiterate that the Veterans Day Parade is going to be held in Rockland this year on Saturday, the 11th, at 9 o'clock.
Have we received any notice for that, or anything?
Thank you
Any
very much
agenda?
for your time.
Thanks, Jack.
Thank you, Jack.
Thank you for sticking to an agenda item. We appreciate that. At the next meeting, you won't have to wait till the end. You could be right at the beginning and talk about that.
No, that's
Yeah.
a good, that's a good point. That's a good point.
Yeah, could you check on that agenda for us?
We'll check on the parade. Make sure we get a notice.
Anybody else want to talk about anything else? Yes, sir.
On the agenda, one of the items was the old Scout building and the tearing it down. I believe, Alex, a couple of meetings ago, we had asked to get a plot plan of that property.
Yes.
Could we get a copy of the plot plan for that property?
We did ask, and we actually, it's in Wheatley's hands right now. We had asked our building department, but they, originally, when they needed the original plot plan, and Wheatley had that information, so I will double check with him again tomorrow
Okay.
on that.
Thank you.
Anything else? Yes.
I'm hot tonight. As part of the surplus school committee building, I just would like to actually find out, are we actually owners of the center school and the North School, or are we still waiting for that to be officially turned over to us?
Congratulations, you own it. You are proud owners of the, and I believe we need to get you the names of the people on that committee.
Dory actually
Already
did
got
that, except for the one
Excellent.
remaining outstanding member, our.
My recommendation is to have a meeting as soon as possible, and
Yes.
then the last member can get brought back up to date.
Yeah.
You know, have one ASAP.
Excellent.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.